Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely profound story of resilience and really incredible humanity set right against the backdrop of 1960s Vietnam. We're going to be exploring the life of a young wartime surgeon whose quiet, very personal voice somehow managed to outlive the absolute deafening noise of conflict. Let's unpack exactly how a private record, hidden away during a devastating war, transformed into this massive beacon of hope for literally millions of people. To start us off, I really want you to consider this. How in the world did a lost diary survive the literal flames of war? I mean, in an environment completely defined by chaos and destruction, the survival of just a fragile little notebook is, well, it's nothing short of a miracle. The odds against these paper pages making it through a harsh jungle conflict are just staggering. But, as you'll see, its survival wasn't just some stroke of luck. It was a deliberate, profound act of humanity. Okay, let's dive into this. Let's talk about a remarkable excerpt recounting the historical discovery of a diary belonging to a woman named Thuy Tram. Now, to give you some background, she was born in the historical city of Thuy back in 1942, growing up in a family that had a really strong intellectual tradition. Seeking to use those talents to actually help people, she moved up to Hanoi to study medicine. And as a super bright, dedicated student in those bustling streets, she wasn't just, learning to be a doctor. She was witnessing an entire generation getting ready to defend their nation. Fast forward to today, and she's considered an absolute national hero in Vietnam, mainly because she devoted her entire youth to saving others.
So let's move into the first major chapter of her life, the young surgeon and her grim reality on the front lines.
I want you to try and picture the stark contrast. It's 1966 and the conflict has severely intensified. At just 24 years old, Thuy Tram volunteers to leave the relative safety of the North. She literally travels the totally arduous Ho Chi Minh Trail just to serve as a surgeon down in the Quang Ai province. And we're talking about working in these primitive, hidden field hospitals in the jungle under incredibly dim light. She's operating on severely injured soldiers in some of the most dangerous conditions imaginable. Yet, somehow, in those quiet, incredibly harrowing moments between surgeries, she carved out time to reflect. She took out her pen and just kept a diary, documenting all her fears, her grim reality, and honestly, her unwavering hope for peace.
And that brings us to a really powerful phrase: don't burn. These two simple words are pretty much the emotional anchor of this entire story. See, during the conflict, an American soldier actually found her diary. Now, standard procedure definitely dictated that this enemy document should be destroyed immediately. But instead, he was so moved by her words that he made the choice to save it from the flames. This one act of preservation was so absolutely central to her legacy that Don't Burn actually became the title of a celebrated film based on her diary, which came out in 2009.
Which leads us to our next chapter, a diary saved and miraculously preserved for decades.
Let's move to and see how this builds across a really vast timeline that bridges entire generations. First, obviously, there's the tragedy. In 1970, while walking in the jungle, Thuy Tram tragically lost her life. She was only 27 years old, and for most stories, that would be the end. But consider this incredible gap right in the middle. For over 3 decades, more than 30 years, that diary was kept safe by the American soldier who found it. Her words were just lost to history for an entire generation, right up until 2005, when a copy finally made its miraculous way back to our mother in Vietnam.
Now let's talk about her global legacy, because her story truly became a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, just think about this staggering number: 300,000. When the Diary of Thuy Tram was finally published in 2005, it resonated so deeply that over 300,000 copies were sold in the very first year alone. That is just an explosive cultural impact. It really goes to show that her private words, which remember were penned in the dark of a jungle hospital, tapped into this totally universal desire to understand the real human cost of war, and just the sheer resilience of the human spirit.
And this brilliantly illustrates how her message didn't just break sales records, it completely broke boundaries. The diary has been translated into more than 16 different languages all around the world. It's amazing to think that people from vastly different backgrounds and cultures have all been able to connect with her poetic soul and her absolutely unwavering dedication to others.
So to quickly recap all these massive milestones, Thuy Tram remains a profound symbol of the kind of life stories we can't help but admire. We see a woman who tragically lost her life at just 27, yet somehow triumphed through this incredibly enduring legacy. I mean, reaching hundreds of thousands of readers in 2005, breaking language barriers across 16 different translations, and even inspiring cinematic art. She's remembered today not just for how she died, but really for how she lived, devoting her youth entirely to serving others.
I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought to reflect on. If your words, your totally private thoughts, were found decades from now, what legacy would they leave behind? Dang Thuy Tram left behind a legacy of just immense compassion, courage, and humanity that literally continues to inspire us today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope her miraculous story encourages you to think about the lasting impact of your own words and actions.